Hi everybody, it's Ann Patchett at Parnassus Books, and it's Friday, and if you haven't read this book, it's new to you. I am not a reader of true crime. That's just not my thing. I never listen to the Serial podcast. I'm a police officer's daughter. True crime is not where I go. However, I read a truly fabulous book years ago when it came out called Shot in the Heart by Mikal Gilmore. And I have no idea why I picked this book up, but I still have my hardback at home. And I was thinking about it because I was reading a new Susan Orlean book, which isn't coming out until October, more about that later. And she talks about the fact that Mikal Gilmore was so helpful to her in her career. He is a longtime editor and writer for the Rolling Stone. But he was also the youngest brother of Gary Gilmore. Gary Gilmore was the first man to be executed in this country in the 70s after a long period in which we had stopped using capital punishment. Gary Gilmore was the first person to be executed when we started using capital punishment again. It is a book about their family, about the father who was incredibly violent and terrible to the two older brothers. They're the two older brothers. But then later in life, they had Mikal Gilmore, and the father was lovely to Mikal. And that horrible feeling of knowing that you got off easy, and the gratitude that you got off easy, and the understanding of how Gary Gilmore wound up to be a murderer based on what had happened to him in their childhood. You really cannot put this book down, and it is so beautifully written. It also has a lot to do with the family's religion. They were Church of the Latter-day Saints, and when Gary Gilmore decided, because he fought to be executed, and he said that he would get to pick the way he was executed. He was executed by firing squad because in his religion, your blood has to be spilled on the ground. This is really deep and complicated stuff. So when I finished this book, because this was a completely different time in my life before I owned a bookstore when I could do things like this, I then went on and read Norman Mailer's The Executioner's Song, which is a book that came out long before the Gary Gilmore. That won the National Book Critics Circle Award. This won the Pulitzer Prize. Huge. And this is also the story of Gary Gilmore and of execution in this country. Huge. Do you guys remember a time, if you're about my age, when you read Norman Mailer? Like, you just always read Norman Mailer. It was one of the things you did. Don't think that happens anymore. So this you might not want to get into. This, if it's your thing, it's a brilliant, fascinating book. Thanks so much.